We are back. I am Julius, and I am very happy to continue this series. Yes, it is a series. It is the journey to the Snyder Cut, and I am joined by a very special guest, someone who I'm very happy to introduce to this channel. You are probably familiar with his work because, like the Goat Movie Podcast, he loves talking about film, movies, television, comic books, movie news, all of it. I recently watched a news video of his about the Avatar, the Last Airbender series coming on Netflix. And James, I completely agree. I'm a little worried, older sister, younger brother, Sanka. I'm like, we'll see, man, we'll see. But I kind of teased who you were. Who are you, sir?
Well, Julius, first of all, let me say thank you so much for bringing me on, man. I really love the work that you and Angel get to do on the Goat Movie Podcast. You guys are so excellent with just staying on trend and staying on topic, and I love the content you create because it's so inclusive. So thank you for all that you do, man, and I'm so honored to be a part of the podcast today. But my name is James. I go by ReelJames on YouTube, R-E-E-L James. It's a little punny. You can find me on YouTube just by searching ReelJames, and on social media anywhere you want, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, just by searching at It's ReelJames. And I love talking about movies, reacting to TV show. We got WandaVision Fridays, as you know, Julius. We're wrapping up.
Come on.
Oh, dude, it's been crazy. My family has been hating me because at 3 a.m, I start shouting Vision. I start shouting Wanda. I start shouting Agatha. And they don't know who these people are. So they think I'm crazy. But you know what? It's for a good cause.
You're asking all these questions. What are the hexes? Who's Dottie,
Exactly. And if they search up Hex, they're going to think, oh, is he a witch? No, I'm not. I rebuke that.
No, man. Well, if you were, it would be kind of mainstream now, like how there are, what's the term? Like a Kim Kardashian is an influencer, as it were. This show is going to influence a bunch of people to become like Wiccans and all that.
Can you imagine? I'm going to be like, yo, this next screening I go to, whenever we get back to in-person screenings, I'm going to start seeing a ton of Agathas, a ton of Wandas. I'm going to freak out.
I've actually met some of that type of deal. California's weird, man. You're good on the East Coast.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the East Coast we probably don't have as much unique personalities, I would say.
Yeah. Well, would it be kind of like someone does dress like that, and then a bunch of people show up like, why are you dressing like that?
They would probably think, oh, this person's cosplaying, right? Like.
Yeah. Well, I hope you don't mind if I ask where exactly on the East Coast are you?
So I'm located in Fort Lauderdale. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale, like Miami part of South Florida.
Oh,
so I'm not in West Palm, which is super up north, but Fort Lauderdale, Miami, that's exactly where it's at, Julius. I mean, that if you want to come to South Florida, you got to come to Miami. You got to come to Fort Lauderdale. That's where we have all the good food, all the good venues, and live events. It's so much fun, dude.
Okay, I hear a lot of stuff about Florida, just stuff about Florida. And for you to say that you probably not get many unique personalities in your part of Florida, that's actually kind of comforting, because I hear all these stories, zombie attacks, bees, mailmen going witches,
Can I be honest though with you, Julius? I would say there are times where the news cycle sort of favors these crazy Florida man stories in Miami and in Fort Lauderdale. So we do get these personalities, but I won't lie to you. I think maybe it's because I have been taking time away from news as much as I used to. I used to work in local news. So that was awesome. But having your ear to the ground 24/7, you hear stories you kind of wish you didn't hear. And you're like, you know what? I don't want to hear about somebody pooping in a 7-Eleven. So I'm going to walk away from this.
No, only if it's like an AM PM. That's the favorable option.
That's right.
Well, I brought up that this is the journey to the Snyder Cut, James. Obviously, we are in, when these videos will be posted, we are in the days coming to Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, before anything, are you excited for this film?
Oh man, I'm so excited. Without me getting into my history with the Snyderverse, I guess I want to call it, or any sort of the DCEU news, I'm a fan of DC, but more so by the comics than the movies. So when the movies started to roll out, I thought, oh, this is interesting. I like Man of Steel. I really like Man of Steel. And I like some of the other films that sort of helped build the DCEU, but I always felt like maybe they were going about it the wrong way when they rushed to the finish line with Justice League. The thing is, when I started seeing films like the one we're going to talk about today, like Shazam, I started to get hope again for the DCEU. And then I hear about the Snyder Cut and I'm thinking to myself, time out. is there a second wind in store for the DCU? And I think there is. So I'm super excited for it, and I actually can't wait to sit down for 4 hours and 2 minutes, is it, Julius, and watch this thing.
I just know it's longer than Godfather Part 2. That's all I
Oh
know.
man, if it's anything like Godfather Part 2, I'm gonna cry, dude.
I'm gonna cry. That will be the one that Al Pacino shows up in. Everyone's been saying Al Pacino in WandaVision. Nah, he's gonna be in Justice League as Granny Goodness. I'm down with that.
He's mocapping Granny Goodness. I agree. I'm gonna start with that.
Oh, dude, I think I would like cry like yourself if that actually. Oh yeah, Darkseid. Oh, or wait, no, ooh, you know.
Yes.
But you said it, man. We are talking today about Shazam. This man right here. Zachary Levi as Shazam in that very same 7-Eleven you brought up earlier. And probably this is a movie that came out 2019. I think it was like April. It might have been before Avengers Endgame. Which was
Yeah, it was.
Okay, well, that was definitely the smart move on their part. You know, with a movie that big, you have a nice, really soft and I don't want to say kid-friendly, but lighthearted film within this roster of DC films. Shazam obviously is about Billy Batson, who is a child, who's an orphan, moving from place to place, kind of like this rebel, and he's found by the wizard Shazam, given these great powers that when he says the magical word Shazam, he turns into a giant, muscular, superpowered superhero. That has to be kid-friendly.
It needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't, I don't know if I would love it as much as I do love it. You know?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I was just going to hop in. I didn't want to cut you off because you were doing so great, Julius. But what I want to say... That's right. No, what I will say is that I think this only works because it captures that childlike innocence that Zachary Levi is very good at expressing. He works so well with these child actors because the script allows him to be less serious, more funny. This was the first DC movie that I can tell you that really honed in on successful humor, because I think the other movies, they had those bits of humor that didn't really work too well. Like Wonder Woman tried to give that to Chris Pine a bit, and I think that in Justice League was a total miss, clearly. But what I will say, and even in Aquaman, I'm not going to lie to you, I think Aquaman came out just before this film as well, and
yeah.
I didn't care for the humor in that movie. I think Jason Momoa had it. It was the writing that failed that film. So for me, seeing what David F. Sandberg was able to do and bring out of these kids and bring out of Zachary Levi, even Mark Strong, even though I felt like he was the weakest part of the film,
right.
I think that's what made this succeed, is because we were able to go turn our brains off and remember what it was like to wake up on a Saturday morning and watch a cartoon.
Absolutely. I felt like this definitely captured that cartoon element of comic books that is, I feel like it gets not criticized, but it's not taken as seriously, which is why I think the comic book movies try to push the dark levels. Like you get something like Joker. Zack Snyder's Justice League itself is going to be rated R because they're trying to show this is something that can be more mature. But getting something like Shazam that is just as honest as it gets when it comes to like, what is a comic book, right? A comic book is a fun little story. It's made for kids. It's about a complete escapism. He's literally escaping into a different body, you know?
I agree. And I was going to say, Julius, yeah. I think what's really cool about the film as well is that it doesn't necessarily focus too much on the superhero aspect. It's more so about the family values that the film has. Because for a superhero movie to introduce like group homes, foster children, I haven't seen that before. I mean, sure, we had Wanda and we had Pietro and Age of Ultron where they touched on them coming from a foster home and then being taken in by Hydra and whatnot. But this was the first time I think we saw the day-to-day, you know, the going to high school, the inside the group home. And I think that's what made this movie feel so whole. I mean, geez, what's his name? I think it's Cooper Andrews is the name of Freddy, the actor.
The actor Freddy? Cooper Andrews. I believe that's his name. He was also in It as the kid.
Well, no, actually, I think Cooper Andrews was in The Walking Dead, if I'm not mistaken. He is the gentleman that plays the fatherly type, I believe, in the house.
Oh, am I thinking of someone else? Okay.
Yeah, Jack Dylan Grazer. That's who you're thinking of. It's just not on me. So I love the fact that they gave us these two, the mother and the father of the group home, because I even have it in my notes. I think they're the soul of the movie because what they do is they teach Billy Batson values. They teach him how to value family. If not for them, I don't think Shazam wins at the end. So that's what this movie did so well, and it really just puts an exclamation point on why superheroes that they matter.
Well, I absolutely love everything you just said. The way you said it, why you said it, all of it, and specifically the family point, which is why it's not shocking near the end, and it works completely when that you get something you'd imagine in a sequel with the Shazam family, that all these kids getting their powers and just tearing these demons up. Like, yes, that's unexpected, and it works here, and I want to see more of that. I was freaking out at that part because I actually couldn't believe what I was watching. Like,
You know what's funny? I was introduced to Shazam through a buddy of mine that I grew up with, and he told me about it being Captain Marvel, then the name changing over to Shazam for some legal reasons. And I didn't know enough about Shazam and that storyline to know that his, I guess, well, his brothers and sisters would turn into heroes as well.
yeah.
And when that happened at the carnival scene at the end of the film, it freaked me out because, first of all, I almost had forgotten that some of these older actors were there and I didn't know what their roles were. So when I saw Adam Brody and Megan Good's like name on the cast list, I thought, no, they're going to be maybe stand-ins or, they're going to have different roles. But the fact that they play the superhero equivalents of these children freaked me out. I was so happy.
Well, I can tell you love this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, it's fair to say that. I rewatched it actually today because I wanted to
Oh.
make sure I was prepared. And it was the first time I had rewatched it since I saw it in theaters. It still held up. There were some issues I had with the movie, but it's a strong 4 out of 5 for me. It's a top 5 DC movie. And the reason I say that is because it is going to be the one film that DC wanted the DCEU to be: funny, charming, serious at times, but also really darn fun. And that's something think they failed to capture altogether with all the other movies.
Well, I think that you identify a little bit because you do have this positive personality. Also, the fact that you do kind of look like the Shazam version of Freddy in the movie.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh, I love this, Julius.
I'll
And you're
email
right.
this to you.
Please do it.
That was I looked up your Shazam review just to see what you thought about it a couple of years ago, and then I noticed, man, this guy, he looks like that kid, but like he looks a bit like him. So this is my new favorite image of all time.
I love it. I love it. And it's so funny you bring this up too, because Jack Dylan Grazer, they just announced he's going to be working alongside Jacob Tremblay in Luca. And I'm half Italian. So if you put 2 and 2 together, Julius, you're a prophet, bro.
It's happening. How? Oh god, that's actually kind of freaking me out, dude.
Yeah, I know, but it's still so cool. Thank you for doing this.
Of course, I'll send it to you on your through email.
Please do.
One thing I want to do is kind of establish Shazam, or actually back when he was introduced in Wiz Comics #2 as Captain Marvel. Gang away for Captain Marvel. I mean, this is obviously that look, this cover right here back when this comic came out is classic. It's kind of like the opposite. And kind of a response to what Superman was doing, because on his cover, he's holding the car, he's stopping the robbers. In this, Shazam, or I keep on calling him Shazam, Captain Marvel at the time was doing similar feats. They were trying to sell him as their Superman. And then eventually DC was like, well, maybe we should just buy him because we want to get all they're obviously ripping us off. So let's just get all the money we can get. So they bought Shazam, and now they're all in the same universe. And I love actually in the film that they kind of reference that through your character, James Freddy, how he's a big superhero fan. He looks up to Batman. He looks up to Superman. He has the Batarang. He has a shirt and everything. And I love that they essentially make this for fans, identifying with why fans need superheroes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we, the audience, are viewing superhero films through the eyes of Freddy, like you said.
Yeah.
So we are part of that cast because of Freddie being there. Like I love when movies do that too, when they put in characters in place that are the audience.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was in this film. And you're right about them introducing, Captain Marvel at the time in the 1940s and it being actually more successful than Superman. I did a little bit of research too, and I never knew this because I wasn't a huge comic book reader growing up. I eventually got into it when I was like getting closer to my like 10, 11, 12-year-old like age range. But I'm not going to lie, I had no clue that in the 1940s he was outselling Superman.
Insane. Insane to think about. And he
Can't
kind
believe
of
it.
is to this very day, if we're talking about the film landscape, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's incredible. And I think that's a big reason why DC was like, hey, I want to team up because we can't really be afforded to like, have this not bad publicity towards Superman, but when you have two different companies trying to vie for that number one spot, of course they're going to want to buy out the competition if that means they can, get a leg up on everyone else. So I think it's pretty cool. And it's actually really awesome to look back on comic book history and see that some of these lesser known superheroes were bigger, but because some of those superheroes that were kind of like behind in the race got
Mhm.
films now, they're more popular in today's day and age.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If you look back on interviews with Stan Lee, he'll talk about how he came up with the Fantastic Four, for instance, and which was a very defining comic for Marvel. And he's like, yeah, well, I mean, DC, they were doing the Justice League, and we needed the team, so I did that. And it's something as simple as that has become this like legacy and this turning point for comics, honestly. And it gets us excited for whenever they do the Fantastic Four in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And all that came from, yeah, I wanted to, compete.
Competition brings out so much creativity sometimes, and in this case, I mean, it works all the time. I mean, look at Justice League and Avengers, right? If it wasn't for Avengers going and crushing it, we might not get Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Henry Cavill as Superman, or even Ben Affleck as Batman.
Yeah, or even a new Superman played by possibly black actor, or the Batman with Robert Pattinson, or Joker. I don't think we'd get a Joker with Joaquin Phoenix without the turning point of the MCU. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you. I think that those one-offs, and I'm sure we'll talk about it here too, but it's
Mhm.
the one-off movies that are loosely connected to the DCEU, but not really, that do the best for DC.
Yeah, absolutely. And they will continue to. Like, dude, DC needs to turn into like the superhero A24, honestly.
Ooh, ooh, I
You
would
know?
love that. I got chills, Julie. You can't do that to me on a Sunday.
On a Sunday, any other day is acceptable.
That's
Sunday's my
right.
day. um okay, so one thing I want to know is they announced Shazam, right? They announced Shazam along with a bunch of other characters who were getting filmed supposedly. Uh, um and Shazam was one of these characters on the list. You had characters like Cyborg, Green Lantern, The Flash, and Shazam. Shazam's the only one to have gotten the movie so far. What did you think when you heard Shazam is going to be getting a live action film? What were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were, okay, this has the chance to be very unique in that its origin story will be a little bit more layered because knowing, a little bit about Billy Batson and how he, of course, gets the powers from this grand wizard and stuff, that would be something that I think would appeal to a wider audience. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, maybe they won't go the whole like, generic origin route. And I was confident, but I wasn't too confident without knowing the casting. When I found out it was Zachary Levi, when I found out, we had Jack Dylan Grazer, Mark Strong,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started to think, okay, and even Asher Angel, by the way, he doesn't get enough credit in this movie. I think he's really good in this film. When we started to hear about the casting, that's when I thought, oh, they're building something really cool in this film because they're bringing in names that we know, but we don't know too well. And this is going to be the jumping off point for them. And then when you see the film, that's when I was like, okay, so all my expectations were not only superseded, but they were just, oh man, they were blown out the water. Like I didn't think we would get a movie like this, and it ended up being one of my favorite DC films.
I completely agree. I knew the potential of Shazam through the comics and also, more importantly, the Justice League Unlimited series, where Shazam had this great episode. He came in and he was talking about how, as a new recruit of the Justice League, he comes in and Superman is automatically jealous because Shazam is getting all this attention, but he's also kind of naive because he does have the mindset of a child, and he's taking out all this like pent up aggression on Captain Marvel, and he gives this incredible speech about how he looked up to the Justice League, and the Justice League, they're losing their hope steadily, and it's brilliant writing. And I'm like, yes, I need to see this in the live action. I think that would be phenomenal. You know what I mean? Did you ever watch
Yeah.
that?
No, I actually didn't. And I kind of want to now because it sounds really incredible. But I mean, that's the thing. I think that's what this movie can do is that it can, it's a good stepping off point. Like, yeah, Julius, we had the very like generic origin tale kind of vibes to it. But I mean, that's something that I feel like I would love to see live
Oh my
action.
goodness. And I feel like we probably will see it when DC gets their act together and they start crossing these characters over, because Shazam is too good of a character not to see him with another hero. You know what I mean?
That's what I think they're going to do, honestly, in terms of crossing over. I think they're going to forget about the Henry Cavill Superman. They're going to hope that we forget about it. Ben Affleck's Batman, I know they're going to, I know it makes me cry too. They're going to hope that we forget about his Batman, and they're going to want the central players like Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, Zachary Levi, and probably Robert Pattinson. And then you have Ezra Miller, who is going to be the one to tie everything together with the, Flashpoint and whatnot. But I think we're going to get that for the next ensemble film for the DCEU, but we're going to have to forget about everyone else.
It's kind of weird, man. And then
It is.
there's a specific part of the movie that will make that even harder to deal with, but we will get to that. We will. I promise you. I promise you, we will get to that point.
Awesome.
One thing, when it comes to people's familiarity with Shazam, right? I think the number one thing that every person in the mainstream of comic culture knew about was the animated film Superman Shazam versus Black Adam. James, I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen it?
I no, but I've seen this art that you're showing on the screen right now. Why does
Yeah.
it remind? Where have I seen it, Julius? Because
Th-
I know I've seen this before.
well, this is the box cover art for the animated film that DC put out. It's about the origin of Shazam, but Superman's also in it. It's about Clark Kent taking care of Billy Batson, who's kind of like this street rat, and Black Adam just shows up looking for the new wizard, which is Shazam. He gets his powers, they all fight, and it's remarkable. The animation, the lessons, everything about it. I promise you, it's the thing that got Shazam into the mainstream, which is crazy because he's been around forever. But this is the thing that I think is the best introduction for most people because it's freaking dope.
That's incredible. Now I want to add this to my watch list because I've seen this art before, but I figure it's art for a comic book, not for a
Right.
film. And I think this would make an amazing animated film.
Oh my god! Imagine like just a film poster of this with those actors.
Dude, I think it would get people so excited. And I know what DC's doing too with Black Adam, getting the Rock in the fold. You know what they're doing, Julius. They want to bring the attention over to them a little bit more.
Oh my god! Don't even get me started on Black Adam, dude. I'm actually I'm gonna cry and do some Monday Night Raw moves on this Zoom call, dude. Man, this is pretty exciting. So we've talked a little bit about Shazam. I think for me, what works so well about it is that it almost works as a standalone superhero film in the vein of what we got in the early 2000s with stuff like uh, X-Men, Spider-Man, Blade, all those separate, not part of a universe, or for now, not part of the universe. This works in that same way, even though they do have nods to other characters, like visual homages to other characters. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. You know what, and you know why I think they had to do that too when you talk about the little Easter eggs because they were really obvious, the Superman's bullet and the
Mhm.
batarang and whatnot. But they had to do that because I think at the time Warner Brothers was still hoping for some sort of continuity, and they had already written out everything, and they felt Justice League would be a success, and even Aquaman, they felt would do great, and it did. But they were hoping that fans would still have hope for a Justice League 2, and then of course that fell through the cracks. But I was okay with these little Easter eggs because it reminded us that they're still playing in the same world, and I liked the outside looking in perspective because we had only up to this point seen everything from the eyes of Superman and Batman, but we didn't really get another outside superhero. So I love that it took place in Philadelphia. We didn't need to be in Metropolis or Gotham City. We were able to just stick in this major city and
Mhm.
have fun. So I think I was okay with those Easter eggs for sure.
Oh man, I was too, and one thing you brought up earlier on was how this film gave you hope, and I felt the exact same way when I left that theater. I was actually shocked, saying, I actually do want to see Cavill and Affleck come back in those roles, because this, I felt, was proof that those characters could work. I mean, it's a film about us looking up at the heroes, right? And the films that came out featuring Superman and Batman, I felt, though I understand why they went in the more realistic tone, I felt it left little room for the icon status that a kid would have when looking at these characters. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that they had to play this a little bit differently, and they had to make it more accessible for people who didn't understand the characters as much. Because when you watch Batman vs Superman Ultimate Edition, I mean, I never referenced that theatrical cut. I don't like that at all, but I do love the Ultimate Edition for sure. And when you watch that film, if you don't know about Flashpoint, if you don't know much about Bruce Wayne as a character, if you haven't read too many Superman comics, you might be a little lost about their motivations. But when you go and watch Shazam, you don't have to read any Captain Marvel issues. You don't have to read anything about Shazam. You can go in there and enjoy it for what it is because, like you mentioned, you're the person looking up to the superhero. And I feel like we were lacking those films for a little while.
Yeah, I completely agree, and there are definitely plenty of scenes that mirror that. The sequences where he's testing out his abilities, they're filming it, they're in the garage and everything. That he gets shot, he's like, I'm bulletproof. Like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. Just that interaction of like, wait a minute, I'm super powered.
I love that scene though when they're in this the supermarket, and I forgot that this line of dialogue happened shortly after they shoot him in the chest.
Yeah.
Freddy's like, "Well, how do we know it's not just the suit and it's you too?" Okay, shoot him in the face. And I'm like, what in the world? No, that's an awful decision. And then, of course, you see Zachary Levi like arguing against them doing that. But when they do it and the bullets fall to the ground, it's again just it's such a unique way of telling a superhero origin story and how he gets his powers. And I have
Yeah.
to applaud David F. Sandberg for this. Like that is just such a great decision.
Oh my God, that's actually a great point you bring up. Are the details of it? It's very slight world building when you think of it creatively that way, like the logistics of being super powered, right? Where do the clothes go? Is my face bulletproof? You know what I mean? All of those little things help make it feel real, real in a different way than what the Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman were trying to depict, where it's like it's real in that it's gritty and it's darker. With Shazam, I feel it feels more relatable because they are asking those questions. How fast do you think the Flash can go to like 3 bathrooms at once? The dumb questions that we
There
all
was this,
have.
and do you remember that one scene as well, Julius, where they're in the sky and it's Thaddeus and it's Shazam and they're floating, they're about to shut down for the final time, and then you hear Mark Strong's character just start to belt out this speech, the typical villain trope, and then you hear Shazam say, "Is he saying anything? I can't hear you. Like you're so far away right now." That's so self-aware.
I love that little moment he takes where he's like he notices, oh wait, he's talking. Oh. He's all the way over there.
It's so excellent.
Oh my God. Yeah. David F. Sandberg. Yeah. I need to see Shazam 2 already. I'm curious.
Yeah, isn't that supposed to come out in 2022 or no?
I hope so, man. I mean, COVID has kind of ruined everything just in general, especially release dates for movies. I mean, we were supposed to get Kong versus Godzilla already. We were supposed to get Batman already. I mean, goddamn COVID.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happens.
I know.
See what
I know.
happens, Larry? It's have you ever seen Big Lebowski?
Yeah, of course I have.
Oh,
I
then
saw
you
I
know.
saw it twice. The first time I saw it though, I was too young. I'm not gonna lie to you, so I didn't understand many of the jokes except for Over the Line because it happened to me when I used to bowl as a kid.
Well, I'm gonna go to the government's car. And you see what happens, Larry? You see what happens, Larry? Oh my
I
goodness,
love that film so much.
it's phenomenal. John Goodman in the second film, please, for Shazam.
Right.
So in your review, you mentioned how, and this is in 2019, by the way. In your review for Shazam, you mentioned how most of the DCEU, other than the Wonder Woman and Shazam, didn't work for you? If that is still the case, where did Shazam succeed where the others may have not?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's changed only ever so slightly because I did a rewatch of Man of Steel
Mhm.
after, screening Shazam, and I actually liked it a little bit more because I think I tempered down my expectations of what I wanted from a superhero movie, and
Right.
instead I looked at that through the lens of Zack Snyder, and I actually really appreciate that film much more. So that statement is still true, except I guess putting aside Man of Steel. But what I will say is that I still think, excluding Man of Steel again, that the statement still holds water for me because I don't think that the DCEU has ever found its perfect stride. It's never really fallen into a very like good groove. I really do think that this cinematic universe, it has so much potential. Do these characters are ripe for storytelling? I mean, we just got news of was it Blue Beetle that's getting a live action film, if I'm
I
not
I
mistaken.
think that was a while ago when they announced, because I remember them announcing a Booster Gold that was being worked on. But yeah, I think Blue Beetle was also announced.
Yeah, and the thing is, these are the stories that need to be told because I guess they were trying so hard to feed us, Batman, Superman, Justice League, because they were rushing to go ahead and follow Marvel Studios' timeline. And that
Yeah.
was my biggest, I guess, complaint is because the vision there wasn't very pure. It was playing catch up rather than running at your own race. And I
Mhm.
really feel like if they did that from the beginning, we still would have gotten these Shazams and these Aquamans, but we would have gotten better ensemble films. And that's what left a sour taste in my mouth. So I do think that Shazam is still up there with Birds of Prey, with Man of Steel, of being the best, and even Wonder Woman, the first one, of course, of
Right.
just being the best of what DC has to offer.
I agree. I feel like what you said about them rushing is definitely uh, true, and I could sort of sympathize with them in that they don't want to be compared to something like Marvel because those complaints they're already, when Shazam was coming out, you're making a Marvel movie, huh? Like, you're gonna get that type of thing no matter what. But it's tough because you're being criticized for copying another studio's business plan, right? So you all automatically run out of options in how to introduce these characters. Okay, so I guess we'll introduce Batman in the second movie of our world. People want to see that, right? So let's do that. We don't want to make another Batman movie because it'll get criticized for being what Marvel's doing. But I mean, Marvel is doing it right. That's the thing. I mean, look at where we are now. WandaVision's at latest episode. It's like the biggest payoff for the MCU in recent memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
DC should have been owning them at this. Um, so I hope, like you, that they do find that mojo, as it were. Whether it be with the Shazam character, the Wonder Woman character, even Aquaman. Um, Man, 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 dude. Because
I know when you think of the potential of the DCEU, Julius, it blows my mind how they have not capitalized on this further. The Snyder Cut, though, if it does well, I know people are a little on the fence about a sequel, but if the Snyder Cut does well, I do think that they need to allow Zack Snyder, if he would, of course, want to, come back and direct a sequel because there's nothing that speaks louder than money when it comes to corporations, but when it's money and success with fans, that's that sweet spot that Marvel's found that DC has yet to find because even though Aquaman did billions of dollars or $1 billion, I think a little over a billion,
yeah,
it didn't really do very well critically. Like I think audiences were still on the fence. Like they love Jason Momoa, I know I did, but they didn't love the writing. And there are some fans of it, of course, but I don't think they've ever found that sweet spot of we're making a film to make money, but also to please fans that have been along for the ride this entire way through.
I agree, and I hope that t- uh, shifts the tide with the Batman. If the Batman does start this new world where it's essentially a do over. Hey, let's do a new a new Superman, a new Wonder Woman in this Matt Reeves world. I think that will be when it's like, okay, guys, wait a minute. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready, dude.
It'll give them some more, it'll also give them more play with, audiences that still, and I don't know how audiences that like, I guess are diehard cinephiles, they
Mhm.
don't respect superhero movies, like I'm almost of the mind that if you don't know that superhero films can bring out the best in actresses and actors, then you are just behind in the times now.
Yeah.
Like you have to understand that what we're getting in WandaVision, for example,
Oh
we
my
were
God.
getting that level of emotion in Lost. We were
Right.
getting that layered approach to TV storytelling in Breaking Bad. This is
Hmm.
a beautiful payoff that I think people aren't respecting as much because they think, superhero films
Yeah.
and TV shows, really?
Comic books? Come on now. Come on now. We're trying to
Right.
get a new Pride and Prejudice, the fifth remake of Pride and Prejudice. How's that any different than the reboots, dude?
Right. I mean, reboots happen everywhere. It's just about finding that awesome stride. And I think that studios will pay attention if the Batman does well, which it will. I mean, box office, I expect Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves alone, and even all like what Colin Farrell. I mean, gosh,
Paul
who else?
Dano.
Paul Dano, and then Zoe Kravitz as well,
Yes,
right? She's
yes.
playing
Zoe
Catwoman. I mean,
Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright.
these are household names, dude.
Yeah.
People know these actors and actresses, and they're going to bring in money. The thing is, I think the difference will be is that it'll bring in money, but it'll also allow for the DCEU to live on in terms of storytelling. It's
Mhm.
not just going to be a cash grab. Like this is going to open the doorway for something so new, and I won't be surprised if they make mention of this in the Flash solo movie. Like Andy Muschietti is going to talk about this in his Flashpoint film.
I hope we see Shazam in that Flashpoint film, man. I,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
because that's one thing that's actually a bit confusing ever since this whole thing with the Justice League that we got in theaters and the Snyder Cut, and we're getting Shazam and Aquaman. The timelines, the worlds, what's canon, what's not, what's a different world, what's the main world, right? I know Walter Hamada I think last month he came out and said, okay, so Justice League, I still don't know which one he's talking about, but Justice League is Earth 1 and the Batman is Earth 2. Okay, so where is Shazam? Is Shazam a part of this Snyder Cut world? Is Aquaman a part of this Snyder Cut world? You really have to define the lines, because from what I thought, those movies that had come out, Shazam and Wonder Woman, I'm sorry, Shazam and Aquaman, I thought they were part of the canon that was established within the 2017 Justice League. That's what we're led to believe. So it is confusing right now, which is why I'm hoping they get like a broom and just brush it up, you know?
Yeah, I think that the lines being blurred, like you said, makes it hard for fans who want to see continuity
Yeah.
really fall in love with these projects because they're like, oh, I love Zachary Levi and Asher Angel. I love all of them. They're so awesome. But are they going to come back? Like, is there going to be some sort of storyline that's consistent with everything? I mean, when they introduced Mr. Mind at the end of Shazam, are we going to get that supervillain to play in the sequel to Justice League? Are we going to get another ensemble film? Because if they keep doing these one-offs and they're not consistent, they have to at least establish that because they can't keep teasing us with the
Yeah.
next Justice League because then it sort of diminishes the value of a Shazam or an Aquaman because they're individual movies. But if they're going to eventually put them in an ensemble film, you got to start introducing storyline threads that kind of weave in and out.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, what these guys I think miss is that they're not selling films; they are selling continuity. That is what people are paying for. WandaVision is successful because of the lengths it's stretching back into like movies and movies ago to add to the story it's telling now. And I think that's what nerds, fans, comic people really care about is what it's why we notice, okay, that's Don Cheadle and that's Terrence Howard, that's Edward Norton and that's Mark Ruffalo, right? It's why a lot of people are freaking out about this news of Henry Cavill. Is he dropping out? He said he'd be coming back. What's going on with that? A new Superman movie? Who's it going to be? You know, and it's unfortunate because DC, they should have the most leniency in that the multiverse is their thing, right? That is their uh, um, forte. that's their forte. They went to college for the multiverse theory. You know what I mean? And Marvel is doing that. Guys, you need to own this right now. Establish, please. Establish. Where is Shazam? Where is Black Adam? Where is Justice League? Where is Henry Cavill?
Right, I totally agree with you. And you know what's crazy? There's an amazing comic book, I think, or I believe it is a comic book storyline. I don't think it's a single issue
Hmm.
that deals with Superman and Shazam's rivalry.
Mm.
Dude, imagine if they were to continue with this like consistent storyline and eventually have them face off. Like, I would love to see Zachary Levi and whomever they cast for Superman go ahead and show down. Like, that would be perfect. It's a battle of two nearly invincible superheroes, but like you said, if they don't continue to be consistent with their storytelling, we're not getting any of this payoff.
Here's my well, you said it, man, and you perfectly transitioned to this next image I want to show everyone, which freaked everyone in my theater, even the people who don't like comic books, out. That suit means something to our culture. That suit, they
Mhm.
didn't even have to show Henry Cavill's head because it wasn't him, obviously, but
Right.
that that suit speaks volumes. Obviously, it got
Oh,
people excited, freaked out. Oh my, there is a future, there is hope. I need to see that team up ASAP. And I think it's crazy. So before anything, before we continue in like the nerdy theorizing, what do you think is going on with Henry Cavill and Superman?
well, honestly, I had time to think about it because my first reaction was, well, then maybe there is a chance he comes back in some sort of alternate timeline if they're going to open up Flashpoint.
Right.
But I have to go with my gut, and I think Henry Cavill is done playing Superman. As much as he wants to come back and don the suit one more time, I
Yeah.
do think he's done because you don't announce that you're rebooting Superman with J.J. Abrams as producer, who was known to reboot Star Trek, who rebooted Star Wars in a way, not I mean not rebooted, but like gave it second life
Yeah.
in terms of their theatrical films. But what I will say is, you bring on Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's an amazing writer. He's a great
Yeah.
author, and you bring him in
Absolutely.
to pen the script. You don't bring in an accomplished black writer to not cast a black Superman. And when then I heard the rumor that the Hollywood Reporter put out and said, "Hey, we're hearing they're looking for a black Superman," I'm like, all right, Henry Cavill is done. As much as I feel like he was failed by the studio, he's done.
Man, that's crazy. And it sucks. And those reports may and rumors probably will be true because you say J.J. Abrams producing, Ta-Nehisi Coates, I hope I'm saying that correct,
Yeah.
writing. Why wouldn't you say, and it's Henry Cavill's film? Like, why wouldn't you say that?
I feel like there's a certain disconnect, if I'm not mistaken. Henry Cavill, like, he's been pretty mum about like all the drama behind the scenes. Ray Fisher's been very vocal, thankfully, and we've heard these stories on account of him and his colleagues and whatnot, but he's been pretty mum. However, they've shafted that character for a while. The last
Yeah.
time we saw Henry Cavill in that Superman suit was what, 2017's Justice League, like you mentioned. At the end of the film, even David F. Sandberg said he wanted to get Henry Cavill in the suit, and they were
Yeah.
going to sit down and have a conversation. I would have loved to see that scene, but he wasn't able to go to Toronto and shoot that scene. So it's a shame, but like, they have not been able to get him in that suit in a film that is like connected to the DCEU. Like the Snyder
Yeah.
Cut, I definitely think there are going to be certain ties that they pull from that and keep with the DCEU, but for the most part, doesn't the Snyder Cut kind of feel like a what could have been type of film?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I feel like it is. I don't want to brush it off by saying it's a what if. I mean, it's obviously the original vision for what Snyder had, but it's in the past still. You know, like the announcements and the trailers came out in 2016. You know, like years ago at this point. You know, um, so I do agree with you in that. How far will the Snyder Cut be reaching in terms of its storyline? Because we kind of passed it at this point, unfortunately. You know, we've gotten Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 84, the Aquaman sequels are going to be happening. Shazam came out, and were those in the original plan along with Zack Snyder's Justice League? What there's complete disconnect. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I know
Um,
exactly what you're saying. I think the vision shifted after Justice League, had that terrible critical response. And they were like, you know what? Okay, there's something that we can pull from this, which is, making these superhero films a little bit lighter. I mean, you get something like an Aquaman, you get something like Shazam, and even Wonder Woman 1984 was not as serious as its predecessor. It was way more lighthearted, even though Pedro Pascal's character was an excellent character, excellent villain, but they made him a little bit more comical in a way.
yeah,
So he wasn't as grounded as some of the villains that we saw in Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. Like, we saw villains there that were way more realistic. And I think the vision has changed now for the DCU. Like we said earlier, dude, they're gonna go that one-off route probably, and then loosely connect them and eventually get an ensemble movie. But
Mhm.
I think that that vision they had in the original and the Snyder Cut, even though we haven't seen it yet, I think that's long gone.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is just look for what it was and what could have been, possibly. And who
Right.
knows? I mean, if they do announce a sequel to that specifically, it's like if it's doing really well, they announce it. I'm not gonna be like, oh well, we're done with that. Like, well, what are we left with, dude? We don't really have much, so why not give him another go at it? You know?
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to put down this cut of the film because it still will hold water no matter what happens in the DCEU. Like you said, I mean, it happened in the past. This was the cut we should have gotten. If you don't want to watch it, fine, don't watch it. But the movie is there for those who wanted to see Zack Snyder's vision come out to play. And I mean, you and I are going to be in our seats on March 18th, and we're going to watch this darn thing for 4 hours and 2 minutes. So I am definitely going to sit down and take it for what it is. That's the thing. We got to take it for face value, just like we're taking the rest of the DCEU now. Like I can't even have expectations for the DCEU anymore because I
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing next. I have no idea.
What's the plan? What's the end goal? The end game, as it were. You know, I mean, it
Yeah,
feels like it's kind of like a throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And some things do stick. Shazam does stick. Joker does stick. People liked Birds of Prey and Aquaman, and I mean, Wonder Woman 84 is a different story entirely. But people are at least excited for things like the Batman, right? You know, I mean, they're going to
that's right.
continue to throw stuff, and we'll see if it works or if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, listen, I would love for everything they throw at a dartboard to stick. We know some things will fall through the cracks, but I mean, I'm all here for a Birds of Prey sequel. You know, I'm all here for the successful one-off DC movies that did well for them to get another follow-up movie. And I mean, we were talking, I know, about Superman coming to that cafeteria. There was one thing I just remembered when Shazam, he says, I had to call in a friend of mine.
right,
Now, him saying that he's a friend of Superman probably eliminates their rivalry. I mean, they can
right.
maybe bring it back and, say, okay, they ended up being, terrible like opponents. They hated each other. But it sounds like here that Superman is already friendly with Shazam. And then, of course, in turn, would be friendly with Jack Dylan Grazer, with Darla, and all these different characters that we've already gotten introduced to in Shazam. So I think this was David F. Sandberg's way of saying, you know what? Dang it. I want to connect these films together. And like you said, I don't know if this one will be connected because clearly, as we see Superman here, he's white. When they do cast a black Superman,
Yeah,
there's no consistency there anymore. But
right.
like you mentioned, the Flashpoint thing, they can just sweep it under the rug and say this never happened, and we're going to reintroduce Superman in a different way to this Shazam.
Oh man, the scene you loved and got freaked out over didn't happen.
Exactly.
It's kind of like what, even though I like Days of Future Past a lot, it definitely did that. Look, we did this movie to get rid of like The Last Stand, but hey man, in doing that, you were also getting rid of X2, the first X-Men films. I like those films, you know.
I know, man. I know. That's the thing. It gets tricky, right? When you start
Yeah,
eliminating previous films, something that Marvel's never done. They've always, no matter what, hit or miss, they've rode with that wave. Thor: The Dark World, not a great film, honestly. Not one of Marvel's best, but they at least gave it some sort of importance by introducing the next Infinity Stone. So it
totally.
allowed itself to be important on its own because of that. So Marvel said, you know what, it didn't do well, but we're going to continue. Iron Man 2 didn't do well, whatever. We're going to do Iron Man 3, We're going to keep moving forward. That's the thing. DC is pivoting based on like critical reception
Yeah.
instead of pivoting because of the consistency of the story. They're not actually sticking with it. And I hope they do because, man, Shazam, it's successful. It did well at the box office and it was pretty revered by almost everyone.
How could you hate that film? How? I don't. It's like hating puppies. I don't get it.
It is because I mean Zachary Levi, like that honest, like genuine charm that he has in this film. I mean, for all intents and purposes, like he seems like a great guy, and it's like, hey, I want to be friends with this guy. He's a superhero. He's playing a superhero, but I still want to be friends with him. Like some people would look at Ben Affleck's Batman and be like, he's a little scary. Do I want to be friends with him, or do I want to just say I know him?
Yeah, I saw him once at the Arby's.
Yeah.
you know, um, I love that, and I love that Shazam represents that, the friend, as it were, as Christopher Reeve described Superman once, the friend, and that's a beautiful thing. And I love that you kind of get that Superman is obviously a big inspiration for what Captain Marvel did become in comics, and for his character even. But you get those themes, those similar themes in this film. You get power, what that power could do to someone who's just learning about it, especially if they're a kid, if they're adolescent. Reminded me a lot of what was going on in Man of Steel when they had the young Clark portions where he saves the bus and everything. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that there are parallels here. It's funny because, man, I didn't know how similar Superman and Shazam were in the comics, but like you said, in the films, there are those parallels in both of those films. Like Man of Steel and Shazam, they both have an origin story to boot. Like you said, we see young Clark, we see Asher Angel before he becomes Shazam, and then he's learning his powers. So I think it's beautiful that we get these parallels between both heroes, but one is more light in tone, and the other is a little bit more dark and grounded in realism. But I love the fact that both address very real issues, which is you want to love everyone. You want to treat others as you would like to be treated. And that's the thing, Clark Kent has to learn that maybe, okay, I need to be selfless and sacrifice myself if it means saving this city.
I completely agree. One thing that you brought up was the tone, the way that the tones juxtapose each other. You have a much darker take with Superman. You have a much lighter take with Shazam. My question is because when they announced Shazam and they announced all those projects that they were working on, the Snyder verse was still a thing. We were waiting for Batman versus Superman, and Justice League was announced, Justice League Part 2. Like, they were announcing a lot of stuff that would supposedly be part of this world. And I'll just show you this photo that I found, which I thought was really funny. But aside from this photo, how do you think Shazam would have fit within a Snyder vision of the DC world?
That is a great question, Julius. It's something that I guess I thought about initially, and then I stopped thinking about that once I saw the film because I figured, oh my God, like I'm so happy they went this direction in terms of being funny, jovial, like optimistic. But if we ended up getting this Shazam in a Zack Snyder-esque film, which should be more brooding, and I think we miss the essence of the character of Shazam. Because Shazam, he looks older. In the movie, they joke about like, oh, maybe a mid-30s, possibly early 30s. He looks older, but he's still a kid at heart. It's that childlike essence that allows him to be the hero that we see in the final film. So if we got someone who is a little bit darker in terms of being, sad, or it could be someone that has a very tragic past that they're unwilling to address it until they become a superhero and then they take it out on their fellow neighbor, that would be kind of tough to stomach because that isn't the character of Shazam. So right. I think it wouldn't work very well at all. And I'm actually very glad that they went away. But again, it comes back to the issue of, well, was Zack Snyder's vision the vision that Warner Brothers wanted to go with? Or is there pivoting, I guess, after Justice League? Was it a smart move? And for Shazam, I think it probably was a smart move.
That's actually a really great point, that Zack Snyder obviously had all these grandiose plans for those characters within the Justice League, but did his vision include certain characters that might come off as a bit goofy in that vision, like Shazam, like Animal Man, the Teen Titans Robin, all these characters that could come off with a lot of levity? Were they even included in his vision? And if they were, how much altered would they have been? I mean, one thing Oh no, sorry. Please, James, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that they would have been altered quite a bit. I mean, I don't think we get an optimistic Shazam. I think we get Mark Strong probably killing some people and then seeing everything like as it is, because in Shazam, they cut away whenever like the 7 deadly sins were going around and killing everyone at that board meeting. But yeah, no, I think we would have gotten a very graphic Shazam.
One thing I just noticed in this picture was the little cross in his hands. I just...
I did not notice that.
We would have gotten that for sure. Who is this actor?
I don't know. It's like Zachary Levi, but like not Zachary Levi. Like, I don't...
It's just some random guy angry. It's possibly my favorite Photoshop of all time. Oh my goodness. Here, let me just check the notes because I like to stay on track. I like to be
For sure,
professional,
for sure.
especially when there are guests in the chat, of
Thank you,
course.
thank you.
um, so we're talking about obviously Shazam. It has to lead into the Snyder Cut, that because that's why we're doing this. That's why we're talking about this. When the Snyder Cut comes out, I feel like there will be there will be a couple reactions to it. I think overall, it's a masterpiece. It was overhyped. It's terrible, right? I think those are three automatic reactions they're going to get, whether they're warranted or not. I think that's exactly what we're going to get. So, how do you think that Shazam will factor into the way the Snyder Cut is looked? Because obviously, you have something. I mean, whether we like it or not, whether it's canon or not, it's a part of the buildup. You know, it's the DCU. This is the Justice League. It's essentially the Avengers for this world. And here we have Shazam acting almost as like the Ant-Man of this kind of universe. How do you think Shazam will be looked at in relation to something as heavy as the Snyder Cut?
I think that the fans that don't like the Snyder Cut very much are probably going to be the fans that were championing for DC to go in the direction of Shazam and Aquaman. That's the camp I think a lot of those viewers will fall into. Now, not everyone. I think there are going to be fans like myself that are still willing to have an open mind about the Snyder Cut.
Right, yeah.
But what I will say is that if it does well, right? If the Snyder Cut does very well among a wide group of people, I think there's a great possibility that we'd never get a Shazam movie in the DCEU ever again. Like, we'll probably have to get more Matt Reeves Batman instead of David F. Sandberg's Shazam. But then it creates this weird rift, right, in between the studio and the storylines because you're getting Fury of the Gods, which I
Yeah,
believe is the working title or the official title for Shazam, the
yeah.
sequel. So you can't ignore the fact that the DCEU has moved on. But if the door is still slightly open for another Zack Snyder DCEU film, you're essentially confusing your audience and you're letting them know that, hey, we have those optimistic films, but we're just going to go serious and brooding superheroes. So I think that this will be a very confusing film in terms of watching it chronologically in the lead up to the Snyder Cut. But if you were to like just kind of I guess not rewatch everything in order, but watch some of your favorites like Birds of Prey, Shazam, Wonder Woman, and Man of Steel, and kind of forget about, the Justice League theatrical version and not really like stay consistent in terms of the timeline. I think the Snyder Cut will probably play out better because it'll feel more like a standalone film as well.
Yeah, man. I never even thought about that because if the Snyder Cut, which it probably will be one of the most successful, uh, what am I trying to films, anything on streaming, it's being hyped up ridiculously so. It'll probably get more viewership than maybe even WandaVision's first episode, its second episode, and the finale. Probably beating out Superman and Lois. I mean, this thing has been like being championed for, waited for, dreamed of, right? I never even thought that wave of excitement and viewership could shift DC and Warner Brothers priorities of like, okay, well, this got us way more attention and got more subscribers onto HBO Max than what we had with Shazam in the theaters, right? Obviously everything's proportionate. It's they're very different settings and everything, but the Snyder Cut is due to be a success that way. Just due. It's like
I,
a filling glass.
I totally agree. And you know what? Numbers don't lie, Julius. So
No.
if HBO Max sees an uptick of like 1 million+ subscribers because of the Snyder Cut, and let's say those households, at least like half of them or more than half of them play the Snyder Cut for as long as they want, it could be an hour, 2 hours, the full length of the film, those numbers will encourage WB and HBO Max to say, you know what? Oh man, we weren't getting those numbers with a Birds of Prey, but we're getting those numbers now with the Snyder Cut. So maybe we need to move in that direction, which of course would allow for Matt Reeves' Batman to still play ball because it's a very dark film from the looks of it. And the Snyder Cut is looking to be very dark as well.
Yeah.
So if we get at least, that from Warner Brothers, they're going to turn their heads and their eyebrows are going to raise and they're going to think, oh boy, alrighty, well, you know what? Maybe we should continue with this trend. Zack Snyder want to come back and do another one, but then it'll make the fans that loved Aquaman, Shazam, very it'll make them very upset because they're going to now feel like those films are just kind of in their own universe.
Yeah, man, it's wild, especially since they have announced the Shazam sequel. They are going to cross over with Black Adam, which I probably see being more in the tone of something like a Snyder Cut, the Black Adam film.
Mhm.
I mean, that does work. Obviously, he's someone who is much darker than Shazam, so seeing those two tones clashing will be pretty interesting to see. I'm hoping that Warner Brothers doesn't take the wrong lesson from the Snyder Cut success, especially since they kind of did this to themselves by,
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, well, you know what? Let's do the Justice League in 2017, It's like, dude, are you ever going to learn?
And that's the thing, man. If they decide from this point on, okay, Snyder Cut super success, eliminate the other one-offs, we're going forward, Matt Reeves, Batman, Flash, this and that, I think it would it would you would start to like cut off a large part of your audience, dude. Like I think you're gonna start to see a lot of people say, well, I just don't trust in the DCE to deliver something and then continue with it. With Marvel, you were delivered these films and these TV shows now that are so excellent, and you can trust that they're gonna play in this reality of this cinematic universe.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like we're getting that with the DCU now.
Well, I feel like they're definitely going to be going in the direction of, look, we're going to just do the multiverse, quote unquote, to save face. We're going to call this the multiverse. And what Snyder's doing on HBO, that's its own thing. Shazam can be over here. The Batman's going to be Earth 2. And so just be official. I wouldn't have any problem if they just said, okay, look, here's the Earth, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. There's the CW, there's this Titan stuff, there's the, just come out with a map. How about that? Then I'll be much more forgiving.
No, you're absolutely right. I hadn't thought of it that way, but if they would just come out and say, here's Earth 1, here's Earth 2, and here's Earth 3, whatever the heck it might be. This is what's going to help you understand where we're going. I think you start to gain a little bit more trust back. But as it stands now, the timelines are all kind of mixed and mashed. It doesn't really work.
I thought the X-Men didn't know what they were doing. Shit. Like what? Honestly, I think that would be. I don't have HBO Max. I don't know if they have like animated or not animated feature, but like little tool features. It would be a cool little segment if they had like this thing you could activate where it's like the map or maybe a series describing what the multiverse is in the movie context. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you. I mean, they need to maybe take some notes, from Marvel Studios where they're starting to do this Legends series where they're allowing these episodes to be released prior to these TV series to get fans kind of refreshed on what these characters are, who they are, and their importance in the MCU. It would be cool if maybe they put together a little series like that for the DCU because eventually we're all going to be confused because I have a feeling the Snyder Cut, whether you love it or you hate it, it's going to do numbers. And when it does numbers, Warner Brothers is going to come out and say, we've tapped Zack Snyder for a second Justice League film, and we're gonna be super confused, man.
Wait a minute. So that was that in Earth 2 and Earth 5 and Earth 7B? I'm already kind of confused, especially considering what they did with Crisis on Infinite Earths, where they like the CW established, okay, this is Earth 1, that's Earth 2, this is Earth 3, and then they brought in Ezra Miller as the Flash. So it's like, you imagine, okay, so it's canon now. That's literal canon now. Oh, wait a minute. Walter, wait a minute. The Batman's Earth 2? Wait. just come out and say it, man. These guys.
Yeah, it's too much going around in circles, to be honest with you.
Man, they ain't real, James. They ain't real.
Oh, I like that. I like it.
They ain't real. Come on now. I'm gonna look at them like my future son. I'll be like, my boy. I don't know what you're thinking. Oh man, I've had a blast talking about all this stuff with you, James. Do you have any last thoughts regarding Shazam, the DCU, the Snyder Cut, and anything you want to say left?
Definitely. What I want to say is I'm rooting for the DCEU so hard, especially now that we're getting the Snyder Cut in just a mere few weeks. I want to see them succeed. I want to see the studio pump out quality content. They bringing in The Rock as Black Adam. That's amazing. I want to see them continue in the way that they did with Shazam as well. I want them to have these optimistic, humorous, yet very grounded movies in terms of family values and life lessons. I want to see more of that, and I want to see less confusion because whether or not the fans are divided, I mean, that's a given right now. We see it online, we see it on Twitter. There are some great fans out there. There are some fans that are just trashing others, even if they don't agree with them. But I do want to see a more consistent timeline. I think we're going to need to know what the plan is for the future. And everything seems so cloudy now. When they announced the Snyder Cut, I was so happy. But then part of me is thinking, well, what is the future looking like right now for the DCEU? And I want more certainty, but I am positive that, or I should say, I'm optimistic that they're going to go in the right direction because I feel like they've started listening more and more to creatives and to directors. We're getting a Blue Beetle film directed by a Puerto Rican director, Angel Soto, I believe his name is, and he's awesome. And I think we need to get more of that. We need to start branching outward rather than just trying to stick to a timeline that doesn't work. So I am optimistic, is what I'll say about the DCEU moving forward.
There you go. That's why you're here. That's why you're here on the journey to the Snyder Cut, my friend. I'm so glad to have done this. James, why don't you, for the people who have stuck around, why don't you tell them where they can find you, what's coming up next, and any projects that you are working on?
For sure. So you can find me on YouTube just by searching me, ReelJames, REEL James, and on any social media at It's ReelJames. The channel is going to be popping for the next couple of weeks because I have the wonderful blessing of attending Miami Film Festival. So I have that opportunity to review films that maybe you don't know of, but you will hear about as we get into next year's award season. So that's going to be an awesome opportunity. I just finished the Dragon Prince season 1, so I'm going to continue with season 2 and 3, reacting to that on the channel. And we have WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming up. So every Friday morning, your boy's waking up at 3 a.m. on the East Coast, and we're watching it together. So I'm excited.
The Miami Film Festival, are you getting screeners because of obviously COVID and stuff?
Yeah, so I'm getting about 2 handfuls of films just sent to me, and I'm going to be able to cover them. So it's going to be awesome. That film festival has been responsible for giving me the chance to see Parasite and Marriage Story on the big screen. And let me tell you, Julius, Parasite, when I saw it, you could hear a pin drop in that theater.
Oh my God, that's that I regret not seeing that in theaters, man.
Oh, you should have.
I regret, man. But there's always the next Bong Joon-ho film coming.
That's right.
Cinemas. Always the next one. Always the next one.
That's right.
I am so happy, James. I want to thank you once again for joining me, being so humble, being so gracious, emulating Shazam, as it were. And I hope we get to do this again, where it's you, myself, Angel. I was about to call James Angel, because you guys obviously talk to each other on Geekly Goods, and I hope we all get to talk again.
Absolutely, man. I'd be honored to join you again because this is great. Thank you for all you do once again and just bringing me on and allowing me to talk about film because this is what I love to do every day. So, Julius, thank you. You're a champ, and I really appreciate you, man.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I am Julius. I'm here of the Go Movie Podcast. You can like, share, subscribe, but the thing I need you to do is get us to 10,000 subscribers because that is our next goal. That is how we will reach our legacy, our history. Our, as Electro was said, you lied to me if you didn't do it. So go ahead, subscribe, and help us out. And you'll get more collaborations with James here. And subscribe to James's channel. For God's sake, it's free. Oh.
That's right. That's right. I'm so excited when you guys get the 10K. It's coming, man. I'm so excited.
Oh, man. Thank you so much, James. I'm Julius. Goodbye.